I'm Debbie Napier, and I'm from Harlan County. And I worked with a group of sixth graders and had we did a virtual field trip of Lynch, Kentucky, the coal camp that was built by U.S. Steel, a subsidiary of U.S. Steel. Henry Ford built the railroad, and he and U.S. Steel built the railroad into Harlan County to get our coal. Okay, the goals of our project were twofold, and one of them is just simply pride. I wanted our kids to come away feeling really happy about where they were from. There's a negative mindset that we get from TV shows and media and things of that, and I wanted to overcome that, so that was never a positive thing. We didn't focus on bloody Harlan and the strikes and things that I've done in typical units. We looked at growth and integrated cultures and numbers and statistics and where Harlan's place in the world was in the Industrial Revolution, in industrial regulation, in workers' rights and things, and building an amazing city that made us lead the world and help win World War II. So our second goal was to ultimately, as a culminating project, have a virtual field trip of Lynch, Kentucky to showcase that history. So we started out organizing timelines around our room, and they were cumulative. The kids could go up and add any time we got something new. We had took our census data and mapped out maps of growth for our community, and any time that we were focused on a primary source or something that mentioned a certain year, they went and dropped that into their timelines. And so here's a census graph that shows the growth of Harlan County. Before 1910, it was just a group of subsistence farmers, less than 10,000, and so some of these higher bars that you see on this graph represent the 30s and the 40s and World War II and the aftermath. So the kids got really excited about that. They read a lot of primary sources to give them background. Then we traveled to Lynch, Kentucky and Benham, Kentucky, and we explored just, going through on the bus. They got a lot of education on a lot of the buildings that we saw. But we visited Portal 31, which has been renovated to that kids can tour through. We visited the railroad depot. We looked at the coal temple that set the world for coal production. It was the largest coal temple in the world during 2 different decades, and set the record for more coal produced on one day than anywhere else in the world. And I don't know that may have been beaten as we got into the 70s and 80s, but it held for a long, long time. So we checked out on a field trip. Guides were great to give us local coal history. We rode a man trip through the portal. The kids had purchased some iPads with their grant money. They don't video really good in a dark coal mine, so we adjusted some things that we as we worked. But we explored the depot and visited the Lamp House Cafe. We took a teacher with us, Mr. Napier. That's my husband, who was a coal miner for 15 years before he became a math teacher at our school. So he kind of stole the show, and then I went into his class room, and he had a coal mine drawn up on the board, and he was doing parallel and perpendicular lines with a 5th grade group, but he was putting curtains up and showing them how airflow transferred and things. So we got a lot of extra benefit in math class from that. Kim here from KVEC is amazing. Her first visit to the class, she helped us narrow a topic. We had intended with our grant to showcase many things in Harlan County, especially Portal 31 as a focus. But she did some groups, an activity with the kids where they developed lists of what Harlan was to her, and the theme emerged. Everything surrounded coal, and so she helped me narrow that focus to go into Lynch as a coal town more, still with Portal 31 as a focus, but to narrow Harlan down to that region. And so the kids just loved her. They used their iPads in class to document many things they were doing. Then we came back with more census data. Now that we were going to focus just on one end of our county, we looked at data just from Benham, Cumberland, and Lynch, and a lot of this was data from coal companies themselves. Like our census data showed the height of Harlan's population at around 90,000, but some coal data from the coal companies showed that during World War II, we had about 120,000 people. Okay, that's not our official U.S. Census data, but we mapped all of this out, and we started addressing questions in our classroom like who came here to work. So we looked at immigrant sheets. We discovered that at Ellis Island there were recruiters from Lynch, Kentucky to bring coal miners. And so we study Ellis Island in these social studies book, and it's distant, but the kids got to relate it to themselves personally. And let's see, I may have skipped. I wanted to go back. I had well, maybe I didn't drop it on the slide, but they took a map of Fayette County's population, laid it next to Harlan, did a double bar graph. We were competitive with Fayette up until the late 60s. And I don't think for the kids that even opened their eyes as much as it did for me. We competitive with Lexington. You know, we look at that as a region now and find ourselves on the negative side of that sometimes. But up until the coal industry began to slack in the 60s, our numbers were comparable. And that map may show up here in just a moment. But they analyzed more documents, and this time they repeated the documents in their words, so we were improving, putting some writing skills in this. They wrote editorials of events that they read about. I had a student teacher. She was a lifesaver. She used to work at Southeast Community College in the archives, and so she got access to a lot of photography, and we sent the kids to the laptops with sites to go to that Southeast Community College helped us organize. And then we had these printed out digitally also. The kids created images of their own photo essays. Then we did more detailed study of schools in the coal camps and hospitals in the coal camps, and all of these things that were built by the coal towns. And then we looked at Lynch and had a guest speaker. He's with us today, Michael Bradovich, who is one of only two remaining, he's got a brother, two remaining descendants of immigrants that came here. And he told us amazing stories. When his mother got here, Ellis Island, they put a sign around her neck. She didn't speak a word of English. Get her to Lynch, Kentucky. And, the kids just got some amazing history. And ultimately, their final culminating project was to choose from those photos, essays, what their favorite topics of research were. And this is what we came up with, 7 topics that they in-depthly looked at and wrote scripts of and recorded them. This was a big process. It took a week of editing their scripts and things to get this in a format that they would read on a virtual field trip. So as we pan around Lynch and these different topics come up that they've written about, they read them in the background. And Mr. Abradovich is also there as a tour guide to fill in all those blanks for us and give it a nice overview. So KVEC is working to get our virtual field trip up.